Hey, welcome everyone to the Epic Real Estate Revolution podcast. My name is Bruce Johnson,
I'm Logan Krutsch.
and we are the Epic Real Estate Revolution. Our group is known as the Epic Real Estate Investors Association, and we're an active group of real estate investors here in the northwest suburbs of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And Logan is my protege here. He's been in the business just a little bit, a little over, a year and a half?
Yeah, about coming up on the 1.5 year mark.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
made some pretty incredible moves over the past 1.5 years.
yes.
Yeah, Bruce, you're very active here as a kind of the master fix and flipper of the area.
Yeah, master fix and flipper, right? That's right. Yeah, I grew up with basically a hammer in my hand and a tool belt on my side, so there aren't too many things I haven't done.
Right.
But yeah, it's been great to have young people like yourself. You and your dad are involved with our group here, and have really taken action on what you've been learning. So that's
Right.
always inspiring to
Yeah.
some of us old timers here. So so it's cool to have you with us and myself, and be able to do this, share some great information with people, what we've learned along the way, and perhaps some of the things that they should be looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A little bit about me. Bruce here is the master fix and flipper. We are, so my dad and I are really targeting in the multifamily space. We actually just obtained a couple of 10-unit buildings, and we're kind of hashing that through. But getting on with the rest of the show here, we're really going to be talking this week about exit strategies and then how to actually determine value in a property.
Right, and that's very important to understand what that looks like, because a lot of
Right.
times people think that house could be worth, that house probably could sell for $200,000, and if I get it for $180,000, I could probably make a couple of bucks.
Right.
And
Really, it all comes down to that, determining the value. If you can nail that on the head, I think you can't fail.
it's always part of it. So when I go in to look at properties, and I'm looking at homes in my area, in the area that I do business in, I usually go with at least 2 of 3 exit strategies. So, and I think we touched on it the last podcast about what are those type of strategies, wholesaling, fix and flip, buy and hold, kind of the 3 main ones that most folks know about.
Right.
And we're talking about single family residential homes in this case.
Right. Yeah, so, wholesaling, that's a pretty common one. Really what wholesaling is saying, hey, I have this deal, I have it under contract, I've put it together, but I'm not actually going to be the person to undertake the project. I'm going to wholesale it to someone who's going to fix and flip it or rehab it and then go ahead and rent it.
Right. So usually when somebody is looking to buy something at a wholesale value, they're going to look at that, the after repair value and work the numbers backwards, take off the cost of the repairs, and usually they're looking for like a 30% discount on top of that.
Right.
So quick example, if they're looking at a $200,000 house when it's all fixed up, and they got to put $40,000 into it, you're probably looking at $200,000 minus 30% minus that $40,000. So you're looking at roughly, in my head here, what do we have? 200.
So you're looking at $100K to buy
about
it.
$100K to buy it, right? So if you're going to be wholesaling a property, you're going to want to get it for less than that. Actually, if you want to make $5,000 on it or $10,000,
Right.
you need to get it for around $90,000, $95,000. So wholesaling is a great strategy, and in fact, we need good wholesalers in
Right.
our area. There are some that kind of come and go, but for people that are willing to put in the time, a lot of brand new people getting into the industry are being told to come out, go out and find deals and wholesale them.
Right.
And it's a good way to generate revenue. The challenge with wholesaling, though, is a lot of times, somebody just comes out of a 3-day boot camp and they think they know what a good value is, a good wholesale deal is, and they're not understanding what the market, what the market will pay for that.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and so say you do find something that you think is a good deal. If you're going to wholesale it, you kind of have to decide upon that kind of right away, because you can't start rehabbing it and then decide halfway through, I want to flip this over to someone else to do this. It doesn't really work like that,
Right.
Unless your situation is special.
Right.
But yeah, so getting on into our second exit strategy here, fix and flipping. Really, so you can obtain a property either through a wholesaler or finding it yourself.
Directly, right.
And you'll run your numbers, and say you do decide that you want to fix and flip this property. Yeah, you actually, Bruce, if you want to go in
Yeah, I
on
mean,
this, yeah.
it's we have people in our group that are relatively new with our group that are come from the construction industry. So for them to take on a fix and flip, it's something they're not afraid of because they know how to do rehabbing and repair work.
Mm-hmm.
For other folks that may have a W-2, a full-time job, and they don't have that background, they have to defer to having a team and a good project manager and people that can run the jobs for them and can handle the subcontractors and the permitting. So you have to have a team to do it. And if you're that the contractor that's going to do it, the DIY type, they still have to understand the other dynamics of doing fix and flipping,
Mm-hmm.
working with what the market values are and what are people buying in today's market. What are pretty homes? What does a pretty home look like? You just can't go to the home center store and grab the basic white this and
Right.
generic that and try and make a pretty house out of it. You have to understand the trends
Right.
in the marketplace. So there's things that you need to know and to pay attention to when you go into fix and flipping. So that's one of the things that I think I mentioned on the last podcast is I tend to get a little too hands-on with my fix and flips, just
Right.
because I want things to get done a little quicker, and I like doing the work myself. I do like the results of working with my hands, but that can also be limiting. So it's almost the opposite. You think the people that have the construction experience are going to be the ones that are going to be really super successful and scale a big business doing fix and flipping, where actually the folks that don't know how to do that stuff have to learn how to manage a team and how to run
Right.
run that business. So you hear companies that are taking on 5, 10, 15, 20 flips at a time, and those are the ones that have the systems in place that can really
Right.
find the properties, fix the properties, sell the properties, and keep moving forward.
Right. For the smaller mom and pop, doing something like that, it's going to be much more contained. You have if you're kind of small team, most likely them.
Mm-hmm.
But really, one of the biggest things as far as fix and flipping goes is you need to know your holding time and then the costs of that holding time.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a standard hold time for a flip is 6 months. Obviously, every deal is different.
Right.
Could be less, could be a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very important to know the cost of that holding time and factor that into your end analysis.
Right, because your holding costs include things like taxes,
Mm-hmm.
insurance, cost of money, utilities. Those are kind of the key factors that come into holding costs.
Right.
Obviously, what's your cost of your labor and your time? The crews being on the job. So you can put some incentives in place there, where if you have a deadline,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a 90-day deadline to have it finished, so you can get it on market for the next 3 months. It's a good idea to make sure that your crews have an incentive to get it done on time.
Right.
Maybe have an extra bonus there if they get it done then, and everything's
Mm-hmm.
checked off and ready to go to market. That put some extra incentive in there for that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's worked for me when I do fix and flips is I actually pre-market the houses.
Okay.
So I'll put a sign in the front yard, both that we buy houses and also for more information on the house we're working on.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to see what that's going to look like when we're done with it.
Right.
I built a pretty big buyer's list doing that stuff. So
Yeah, I know. I remember when you were on the walk-up property, the first one.
Yeah.
You actually were able to get another house on that exact same street to
Right.
jump into after the
Right.
first one was done, just
Right.
from the signs.
and I had buyers lined up for both of those,
Mhm.
before we even were close to finishing. In fact, the second one that you mentioned, there was buyer number 2 for the first property that I gave first dibs on the next house. So actually, the day we bought the second house, we had a contract to sell it to our end buyer already
Yeah.
at a predetermined price. So, so it was, if you understand the market, know how to do some basic marketing, put some signs in the yard, and we put
Right.
cards around the neighbors and all that. We were looking for more house in the area. We had some leads on some other opportunities in the neighborhood
Right.
from that as well. So we are in the marketing game.
Right.
Um,
You really created the dream situation there.
Yeah.
As far as that goes.
to have homes pre-sold and fix and flips. It has its pluses and minuses.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you get into the project and you have an idea of what you want to do, and it's maybe you're already in the process of doing that, and then the buyer comes in and goes, "Oh, I didn't want that wall there," or but also we give them the option of what color paint they want, and maybe they want to pick out their countertops and tile and things like that, which is they love that.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times they'll look at a finished product and they're going to come in and redo the paint and the
Right.
tile and whatever that is. So it gives them a good,
Right. I mean, it's literally making their home more theirs.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. So it can be a win-win-win situation. Again, we keep,
Right.
it's kind of the theme of what we create with real estate, right?
Yep. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
It is very important, though, to know when you have to make a cutoff. Like how long is too long for the house to sit on the
Yeah.
market before it doesn't sell.
So that only happened to us once, and it was on a house that we did. We actually completed the rehab on it, put it on the market, and just got into the stale time of market after Labor Day. So we had to, we kind of over improved the house.
Mm-hmm.
As a retail resale. We had to actually end up refinancing it and holding it on as a rental property.
Mm-hmm.
So we got top dollar for the rental on it. We're above market rents on it. So that's a good thing. Had I known going into it on the front end, though, if I was going to have it as a buy and hold, I wouldn't have gotten to the level of rehab that we did.
Right.
But I know when it comes to the time, we're going to sell it. It's going to get a higher dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so say you do come up with the idea. It's like, okay, this isn't going to sell. Some of your options really are just to either reduce the price and potentially lose money,
Mm-hmm.
refinance, or just rent and hold it.
Yeah.
So, kind of getting into this third exit strategy here of just holding and renting.
Mm-hmm.
This is something you really need to calculate right at the beginning, along with deciding your
Right.
wholesaling, if you're gonna flip it. You need to run the numbers. Like, basically, will the rent cover your holding costs and debt service?
Right.
That's really your game changer there. And if the answer is no to that, well, now buy and hold is no longer a useful exit strategy for you.
Yeah, conventional buy and hold may not work as a rental, but like I said at the front end here, we want to have at least 2 exit strategies when you go into a deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's ideal to have 3.
Right.
So, the buy and hold. If I know on the front end here that buy and hold is kind of my game plan to start with,
Mm-hmm.
I will make sure that the numbers make sense. And there are occasions when the market shifts a little bit, slows down. When you're in the middle of fix and flip where you do have to hold on to it longer.
Mm-hmm.
But you had mentioned the refinance piece. I've been trained to do my fix and flips with usually private money, and we'll go into that. And that's usually a 6-month term with our lenders.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we need to refinance with a bank, go to the bank and do that. Then we just refinance it out and pay our lenders back and
Mm-hmm.
hold on to it for longer.
Right.
So, long-term money is going to be less expensive with a conventional bank than with a private money lender.
Mm-hmm.
Rates are still really inexpensive. It's just the loan-to-value piece may not be as much as you need. 70%, 75% loan-to-value is
Right.
pretty typical with
Mm-hmm.
most of the banks.
Yeah, and I guess kind of the last couple of things you want to take into consider in the third exit strategy is what actually are the rents in the area.
Mm-hmm.
You can probably get a pretty good idea of whether those rents are going to cover your holding costs and debt service just by looking at what's the market rent.
Yep.
And also, are there good renters available? Talk to some other people who are currently renting out places
Mm-hmm.
in that area. Talk to some real estate agents. See, okay, if this is the route I decide to go, am I going to be able to fill this with good people?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of online resources too. If you want to determine rents, obviously Zillow. If you go into Zillow, that gives you kind of an idea.
Yeah.
I like a website called Rentometer,
Mm-hmm.
RENTOMETER.com, and you can get free rental reports in the area,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of gives you a pulse on what rents for a certain size house in a certain area are getting, and they'll give you some comparables in the area too.
Right.
So that's a good resource. And also for screening tenants. Hot Pads is a great place to post rentals.
Mm-hmm.
That's a subsidiary of Zillow. So it does go on to not only into Hot Pads, but also into Zillow, Trulia, and I think 3 or 4 other websites where
Mm-hmm.
the rentals are showing available.
Right.
And then there's some good online to get to do tenant screening.
Right.
And the other area that you could potentially look at if your numbers are tight on a buy and hold rental is perhaps look at nightly rentals as an option.
Right.
These are short-term rentals for people coming and going, but you have some more costs as far as setting the house up with furnishings and all of that.
Right.
But that does have some potential good upsides.
It has some pretty crazy upsides.
Yeah,
You know, we'll probably have a whole podcast or maybe even series of podcasts on nightly rentals.
Nightly rentals, absolutely.
So we start maybe dabbling in that a little bit. But,
Absolutely. Well, you have a property where that might be something you can actually
right. It
you know,
is,
put into place. So that's cool. That's cool. So yeah. So look at your exit strategies. Know your market. I mean, that's really important. Don't get spread too thin because real estate's worldwide, and you can't work worldwide, especially if you're just getting started.
Right. It's all local,
Yep.
and keep it that way. You'll
Yeah,
thank yourself later.
You really will. It's a matter of being focused and understanding your market. So the next section we're going to get into is really how do you determine the value of a property, and kind of a step-by-step process of what that looks like. So I'm going to go through some criteria that I use when I look at after repair value or potentially buy and hold value. So we need to know what the bank perhaps is going to appraise the property at, so you know if you can get your 70 or 75%
right.
loan to value back and be able to pull your money back out and hold it as a rental. So you want to know what your end game is, and if you're selling it to the retail market, you want to know what that house is going to appraise for your end buyer, because they're most likely are going to go to the bank and have an appraiser come out. So don't get your head in the clouds and think that because you did the property and you use a certain color paint that it's going to get 10, 20, 30% more than what homes in that area are selling for.
Right. You need to kind of have a realistic idea of what's going on.
Absolutely. So the market is the market, the numbers are the numbers, and you may have a little bit of influence on that, but don't think you're going to create a whole new market niche because you have something that's so different. Right.
Unless you do, who knows? Maybe you know something we don't, but
yeah, but for most bread and butter homes, and I'm talking about homes in our area that are homes up to, let's say, 2,000 square feet. We're not talking about the big luxury style homes, which are a whole different market sector and client altogether. But really, kind of the first time home buyer homes and or people are looking to downsize into the forever
just
home.
Stay in that local community, small town USA.
Because that's where the market is hot right now, and it's people are looking to get into their first home or get into maybe their second home or looking to downsize.
Kind of see these millennials realizing, hey, I don't want to rent anymore.
And what I'm seeing in the market up here in the northwest suburbs is when you get homes that are 3,000 square foot and larger, that's a very slow marketplace, and you get into a certain value of home where perhaps the people that are looking to buy a big home like that have enough money that they're just going to build what they want. So you have a market sector that's 9 months, 12 months, 18 months on market to sell the darn thing, and they're selling it for a lot less than what it costs to build it. So you got to be careful when you get into the big luxury market out here in this area. So
probably the most important thing for determining value is you need to know your target area. You not only need to know what area your target area is, but you need to know basically everything about that target area, down to like what areas do people spit gum on the sidewalks.
Oh my God.
You need to know this stuff. But yeah, real estate is a local game. You'll hear us say that a lot. So really focus on maybe one town, half of a town, something like that. We focus primarily out in Woodstock.
That's where you and your dad like to be, and I like to stay within 15 minutes of Crystal Lake, so I can go northwest, south, or east of that, and know that market really well and know it quickly. But for folks that are brand new, some key things that you really need to understand is get to know a process in a certain market, because you can in fact take that to other markets to determine value. So what I want to you and I will talk about here is kind of the ABCs of how to determine value, and it's the most important part of the game is understanding how to determine value, because it's all about the numbers.
Yes, it is.
You're not out there looking for a home for yourself. You're not doing an emotional buy or emotional purchase. You're doing something that's a business transaction that the market's going to determine value.
It's all about falling in love with those numbers. You're basically buying numbers. You're not really buying houses.
Yes, and if you're focused on a certain town, get to know get to know that town, the dynamics of that town. One of the important things that can determine value is schools. Primarily the high school is one of those things, because if I go down to the Palatine, that's not too far down the road from us here. There's two different public high schools there, one being Friend and the other one being Palatine High School. And those, the Friend High School district of homes can be probably 10-20% more in value than the Palatine High School homes. So high schools can drive value. Another example is like Buffalo Grove. Stevenson High School is in the top 10 in the nation as far as high schools go. And Buffalo Grove High School is still a good school, but it's probably in the top 1,000.
Right.
So people love the Stevenson School District, and that can drive value up quite a bit too. So if you're in those markets, just get to know what those high schools are. Those are really market indicators, and can drive value of a home.
Remember, if your market is kind of people buying in that $200,000 home area, looking for either first-time home purchases. Those are people likely with who are starting to have kids.
Right.
They're really thinking about that, and so the school for sure is a major factor in that.
So what I would recommend is get to know a couple of neighborhood developments. These may be developments that went on back in the 70s or 80s. These are homes where areas where they put up 100, 200, 500, maybe even 1,000 homes, where they have A, B, C, D, and E type models. So you can compare it model to model just to get used to the process and be able to pull comps much easier than getting out to areas where they're random style and types of homes.
Right.
So get to know the areas where, like, William Ryan built built a development.
Right, a whole neighborhood.
Pulte Homes built an area. Those are good areas to really start cutting your teeth on, so you can get used to the process. Makes it a lot easier to go and understand the basics. So here's really the perfect world criteria that and it's not a perfect world, but if it were, and if you're able to get into a development neighborhood, it's going to be a lot easier for you to pull comps. So Logan, I'm going to start with some of the basic criteria, and then I'll get more into that.
We're really analyzing these things based on comps. So your comparables. You really want to look for recently sold homes, really within the past 90 days. The real estate market fluctuates every quarter for sure. So you don't really want to base your, analysis off of the numbers, 2-3 quarters ago. It's just a different game then.
And it could be a different season too. So if there are homes that went under contract last October or November going into the slow season, those numbers are probably going to be a little bit lower than, let's say, right now we're in July.
Right.
Home that just closed in the last couple of months went under contract this spring, and it's important to understand kind of how the ebbs and flows of the market.
Right.
But really, going back just 90 days is ideal. Look for the last 3 months of sold comps. And then, I like to look for homes that are within the same neighborhood,
right,
and or within at least a mile or less from the subject property.
And the reason you would want them to be within that mile or less is, with a square mile around a home, those comparables are going to have a very similar, characteristics in terms of neighborhood quality, like public features, things like that.
Schools, again, they're usually going to be in the same district.
Right.
Absolutely. So
you don't really want to branch out too much more than a mile. Half mile is really great if you can find comparables there, even on the same street. That's
really perfect world, right?
Right.
Same model, same everything. So, and you do run into that on occasion. I'm not saying that's more of the exception than the rule, but occasionally you do run into that where the next door neighbor with the same model just sold.
Right.
And it's a pretty home.
Yeah, it's also important that you're looking at comparables that have the same number of bedrooms and bathrooms.
Yes.
That's going to guarantee that clientele for your comparables is most likely very similar to the clientele for the home that you're trying to sell here.
Yeah, if you're looking at a development area, sometimes a basement's an option that people paid extra for, and or maybe they have a 2-car garage versus a 1-car garage. So there's some other things you need to look at, but if you can find the same bread and butter ranch style home, let's say 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot home, and let's say maybe they added a sunroom on the back or whatever, if you can figure out the difference per square foot after you get done with pulling your comps and see what their actual average price per square foot is, what they sold for. That gives you a little better insight into how to run your numbers.
Right, and again, that same, like, kind of the same person who bought the 3.2, like, down the street is going to be looking for a 3.2 that you own.
Right.
So,
yep. So I usually like to keep, with the same style or model. Is it a ranch home? Are we comparing ranch homes to ranch homes? Are you looking at a 2-story colonial versus a tri-level or, a raised ranch kind of home?
right.
If you can grab them in the same type of a model, 1-story home, 2-story home, or, a tri-level, those can be helpful.
Right.
Once again, perfect world if you can find 3 comps that are all similar style, similar
Right.
square
If
footage.
you can find the same cookie cutter house,
Right.
it's
Exactly.
doesn't always work out that way, but
Yeah.
it is what you're looking for.
Right. So that's the ideal world is you want to find at least 3 sold comparables. That fit within that criteria within the last 3 months, similar style, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage. Plus or minus 10% on the square footage. If you can pull those comps, and I use a program called Redfin. I'm not a realtor, but Redfin pulls from the MLS just like Zillow does, and the other,
Right.
Trulians, Realtor.com or other ones that can be used. I've used Redfin for most of my career in the last 15 years, so very comfortable with that format, and perhaps maybe another week or next podcast or 2, maybe we'll put a link in and I'll show you an example of how I run those numbers. But what I do when I get into that window on Redfin is I'll actually, after I get my criteria set up and I hit the search button and I find similar homes, I actually just right click on it and I open a tab for that sold house, so that way I can create kind of a different tabs I can have open for comparable, so I can look at the subject property. And then I can look at each of the comparable homes that we pulled up and see, look at the other,
Right. How
things
does
in
it
the
stack
listing.
up?
Right? How does it stack up? So what are some important things, Logan, that we want to look for when we see those comparables?
Yeah, I mean, so we're really looking for things like, I guess we're really looking at how they're described. So, is it kind of a new? When they came in and rehabbed the house, did they make it all new?
Right.
Or did they not do that? And then how did it sell? So.
Right. Yeah, so look for keywords in the description, because the description can tell you a lot of things, and sometimes you read between the lines. So I mean, if it's got bold letters, absolutely stunning, fresh rehab, new appliances, floors, all these bells and whistles that are brand new on it.
Right.
That's a pretty good indication that somebody bought it, fixed it up, and resold it.
Right, and so say that actually did sell, and maybe the time on market's really low.
Right.
Well, that could indicate to you that, hey, maybe I want to do that same thing with my house here.
Right.
Because look at how well that performed.
Right. So you're looking for the pretty homes out there that have sold recently, because that's what you want to use for comps.
Right.
Now, what happens when you run into the opposite type of descriptions?
Right. So when you have things like, it's the handyman special sale, something like that.
Right.
You kind of know that that house was not fixed up. It's not. It hasn't been repaired. There's no ARV on that.
Right.
So you wouldn't necessarily want to use that as your comparable for a fixed up house.
Right. Quaint, cozy. What needs imagination, I think, is one.
Oh, that's
bring
a good
your
one.
creative, bring your creative juices to this one, right?
Right.
It usually kind of gives you an idea that it needs some work, right? Maybe the family's been in there for decades,
Right.
and haven't done anything to it, and that could be an opportunity to buy it as a fix and flip,
Right.
right? But when we're doing our comps for, looking at what the appraiser at the other end is going to be looking at, you want to make sure you're looking at those numbers that are pretty homes, or homes that the bank could look at if you're going to do it as a buy and hold.
Right.
What are the comparables that they can use, for the refinance on it, right? So that's, it becomes a little bit of an art to pull good comps.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and we were actually looking at a property in Woodstock the other day, and it's kind of interesting because we went on, what was it, on Zillow, I think, or one of those sites, and this actually was a home, even though it's a Woodstock mailing address, it's a farmette.
Okay.
It was like almost 3-acre type ranch home, home on a ranch style home on a 3-acre lot, which they were pulling comps out of downtown Woodstock.
Oh, really?
Right. So we had to do a little different filter search on it. So
Okay.
when you look at something like Redfin, where you're looking, one of the criteria you put in your filter there is the lot size.
Mm-hmm.
So if we go to like 2 to 3 acre lot size, or 2 to 4 acre lot sizes, square footage wise, and then look for similar bedrooms and baths,
Mm-hmm.
that'll give you a much different sold comparables than
Right.
in downtown Woodstock. Homes that are city type homes.
Right, and even the clientele who's looking for a home out in unincorporated versus
Right.
in the city.
Right.
You're going to be looking to, I guess, not only are they looking for different things, but they're looking to pay different prices, different
Right.
amenities.
Yeah, it's for a different type of a client.
Right.
That maybe it's somebody that has a horse and they want to have a farmette versus a downtown or city type home, or
Mm-hmm.
neighborhood type home. So it's even in the same zip code, you're going to run into different things: unincorporated versus incorporated.
Right.
There's you just got to know that. And even in if you're in other areas where perhaps there's a main road that's a dividing line between school A and school B,
Right.
be aware of that.
Looking for your kind of the borders of neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
What's the actual geography of your location?
Right.
Kind of the end all be all as far as criteria goes is what's the price per square foot?
Right.
What do the fixed up houses sell for on a square foot basis? That's kind of some criteria you can apply to every home, no matter
Right.
what the condition is, and it does give you a good idea as far as
Yeah.
what the value might be.
Right, because when I set up my search criteria and say that Redfin, I get
Mhm.
notifications multiple times a day of here's another 30 homes to consider. Right, I can scroll through that list in 30 seconds and tell if there's anything even there that's going to be catching my interest.
Right.
Most of the stuff in Crystal Lake, let's say, is probably, depending on downtown or away from the railroad tracks, could be anywhere from $120 to $180 a square foot.
Mm-hmm.
And if I see 1,000 square foot home that's $180,000, it's not one that I'm really even interested in looking at.
Right. And it's interesting because you can literally go one town over, take
Yeah.
Woodstock for an example, and
Mhm.
now your average price per square foot is it's like 100 to 140.
Yeah.
So looking at a completely different market just like 5 miles down the road.
Right, and go the other way towards Barrington, down the railroad tracks.
Oh,
there,
yeah.
you can find homes. Homes average price in downtown Barrington are probably going to be $200 up to $300 a square foot.
Right.
So it's a different zip code, same train track line,
Right.
different schools, different economy, right? Different clientele.
Completely different economy.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So get to know that market, get to know your market,
Mhm.
figure out, grab a zip code or two, and just focus on those.
Yep.
If you're coming in as a wholesaler, find out where your buyers are wanting to buy, and working with a local group in your market as a wholesaler, get to know what the people in that group are buying, what they're
Mhm.
looking for, and go out and serve them, because a lot of times people like myself don't have the time to go out and drive for dollars and look at
Right.
off-market properties and market to those. We are looking for good wholesalers. We're looking for people that are getting started in a business that they don't have the means to fix and flip or buy an whole property yet. We want to
Right.
help them become successful as well, because all ships rise with the tide, right?
Yes, they do.
And a good wholesaler is well worth paying them some money for what they do.
Right, and being in the position of like being the fix and flipper, you kind of you definitely want deals to be coming to you, and
Right.
now if you you have a couple like kind of A player wholesalers out there,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be bringing you these great deals, and that's exactly what you want. So
Right.
wholesaling is really all about kind of serving these flippers.
Right.
Um,
Or buying whole investors,
people.
even
Right.
definitely. If they could be out there beating the streets and doing the guerrilla marketing stuff and
Mm-hmm.
doing skip trace searches and probate cases, those kind of things where they're going through the court records and
Right.
finding the off market stuff. This is 2019 right now. The market is strong. There's not a whole lot of investor grade homes on the MLS,
Right.
right? Because you're dealing with you're dealing with homes that have been fixed up. It's less inventory right now. It's a good seller's market.
Right.
But there are opportunities out there.
There are definitely opportunities, and I guess so. I actually, when I go around and I'm looking for deals, I actually take my bike and I bike around. It gives me a little bit more time on the street, and sometimes I run into people and talk to them. But definitely, just from my experience biking around out in Woodstock, I'm usually looking for bad landscaping, things like that, and I do see them. I just found one the other day that I'm looking into currently.
Yeah. Find the tall grass, find the broken window or the sticker on the door, or notice in the front window, maybe a car up on blocks in the driveway.
Right, that's a
grass,
good one.
grass growing through the driveway, cracks in the driveway. Those kind of things are kind of indicators that there's somebody that is not taking care of a house.
Right.
And there are pretty much in every neighborhood there's those kind of situations.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the visible way to find those kind of properties. And estate sales. These are homes that are not on the market yet. So estate sales, garage sales could be an opportunity for people looking to transition. They're not, looking to get rid of the extra before they move or put the house in the market.
Mm-hmm.
So even garage sales can be a good way to
right. And even it's a great opportunity to go in there and just talk with the homeowner.
Right.
And maybe they're not looking to sell, but maybe the neighbor's secretly looking to sell. It's all about getting in there and really knowing your market well.
Yeah, so for the newbies, for the people that have been doing a little bit, or for the old timers, let everyone know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to everyone. Let them know that you're in real estate. You help people with housing problems. You can be a great asset to the seller, maybe the family of the seller. You can provide great value to them and to your end buyer.
Right.
So real estate is always going to be something that's needed.
Right.
Everybody needs to live somewhere.
Yes, they do.
Everybody needs to move sometimes. Where it's always always moving and changing. So real estate's the real deal.
Right. If I remember correctly to my science classes in high school, it's like people need food, water, and shelter. And after that, everything else is kind of secondary.
Right.
So
right.
Water's kind of free, kind of. Food is, we're not in the food business, I guess, but you could be. And then shelter. You do need somewhere to live.
Yes, indeed. So hopefully you guys found value in what we talked about today. This is, what we do. Logan, you're now doing it pretty much full time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am full time in real estate, and I'm loving it.
He's loving it. He's loving it. He's learning how to fix stuff. He just had a dumpster dropped off at their latest project where he's cleaning out a basement.
Mm-hmm. Cleaning it out. It's great because it's always it's really just problem solving on a small scale, and I'm always doing something different every day.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, good. So, well, this has been it's been fun to do it with you, Logan. This is a good time, and I enjoy being able to throw a few nuggets out there, some experience.
I'm learning a ton from this just as our viewers are here. It's
well, we all do. So you never stop learning.
Right.
That's the thing. I may have been doing it for a while, but I'm still learning every day. So our next podcast we mentioned we'll be diving into estimating maximal allowable offer, maybe getting into some repair costs, those kind of things, and how to put together a summary of an opportunity. Right.
So definitely stay tuned for that. That's going to be a podcast you really don't want to miss, especially going into those rehab costs and really what are all the little tips and tricks of the trade for getting an accurate estimate. Right.
Very important. It's all about the numbers. So. Upcoming events, keep tuned into our website, our main club website, which is epicrea.com. That's epic, REIA.com. Epic Real Estate Investment Association is who we're with. And we do at least one meeting a week, if not 2 or 3. We do cash flow on Monday nights right now. We do property tours, a couple times a month, sometimes every week.
We're really trying to host more property tours. I host a property tour once a month at a big place out in Woodstock. Definitely hope to see you guys out there. If you see the signs around, localpropertytour.com. That's us. And
you can opt in there. Or we have other properties that we're doing. So we try and get at least 2 or 3 a month in, maybe sometimes even every week, because we have members that are always buying and selling, and moving renters in and things like that. So, but we're local here in the northwest suburbs. If you're in the northwest suburbs, we'd love to have you come out and check out what we're up to.
Yep, definitely come out to one of the property tours.
Yes.
They're really fun, and just being able to kind of sit down, talk with the investor who's doing the project, and then really hear their story. It kind of helps you put yourself in their place and kind of see, is this something I'd like to do?
Yeah, and we're just average people. I mean, we're not Donald Trump of the world. We're just people that are taking action.
Right.
We're
Really,
learning, we're networking. This is a great team sport, and we're just taking action in the local market. And you can make money in your local market. So
yes, you can, and we're kind of proof of that, and
absolutely,
it's going great.
All right. So very good. Well, thanks, Logan, for doing a great job today. And
yeah, of course. Thank you.
This has been fun as always. And folks, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll be seeing you again soon. And once again, check us out.
Yeah, have a good one, guys.
All right, take care.